Great day, great day. I don't know if y'all heard that in a while or not, but I'm back in the building. What's good? What's good? With my boy James, and I'm glad to be back with you, man. It's been a minute. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a second, and it's good. It's good to be back on here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, man. I'm glad that we could get in a session on. I've been telling them every week that at some point I will be here with Sae'Von, not without Sae'Von. We just don't know when.
Yeah, no. I already know you've been holding it down, man. You've been keeping it steady, keeping the guests flowing, and I greatly appreciate that. So I guess it was last week, but originally I had an idea of us discussing what had transpired at the grand old stage of the Oscars. Some call them the Academy Awards because the Oscar is an award from the Academy, but I'm not in that club, nor are you. Maybe if you're listening, maybe you're in the club, but the thing there, and so if anybody has not heard, Will Smith, he got up on stage and he didn't backhand, but he did open palm slap Chris Rock. Now, it is up to debate whether or not this was a stunt, PR. I threw out the theory that maybe he's pulling a Joaquin Phoenix and doing like a I'm Not Here sort of, movie, and this is a part of that. Who's to say? It doesn't really matter. But the more I thought about it, and even the idea of going into it, was to discuss. I feel like there's a lot of components there to dive into, other than just like, oh my God, what happened? And the real crux of it being the idea of mental health, self-control, stability, composure, poise, conflict resolution, masculinity, and being whipped, potentially. So we can definitely jump into this and still discuss it. But the interesting thing there was that when I first saw it, I had an initial reaction, and then I sat with it, for a little bit longer. Then my reaction definitely turned a bit. But when I was talking to my mom, because she's the one who brought it to my attention, she felt that I was seeing, I was seeing my tribe when he slapped me. When I first saw it, I was in favor of it. I was like, good for him, and I meant that more from the side of good for, assuming this was genuine, right? That he was genuinely upset, genuinely went up there, slapped the nigga, and that's how it actually played out, wasn't a stunt. And what I meant by good for him was prior to that, a couple of days prior, actually, I watched a couple of his episodes on YouTube, which I hadn't seen many of. And basically, he's working on his memoir and made this point about how he would go out of his way to suppress how he felt about things, and to kind of always keep this image of being, nice guy Will, even if he didn't want to, and kind of how that weighed on him and how it had impacted his life over time. And so I was applauding him acknowledging and acting out of what he felt. But then the more I sat with it, and I'm still obviously, when I saw it the first time, thinking about, all right, well, he put his hands on a dude, from a guy saying something, and that's a dangerous precedent. And then on top of it, the black on black image of it being on this global stage, and it ultimately being because someone made a joke about your wife. And, I don't know if you went and slapped August Alsina, who apparently was sticking her down, and she has no problem talking about that on her talk show. So then it, like I said, had me thinking more about the deeper implications of his own mental health and mental stability, all those things I said prior. So yeah, I'll give you the floor. That's kind of my opening piece on that.
No, I think we need to look at it from a few different frames, from a few different lenses. I think that we maybe first start with that initial reaction, the reason why you championed him for doing that. Let's maybe start there.
Yeah, so really it was so also for context, this was so I have been dealing personally in my own life with a resurgence of my temper. Now for years it was in the box, it was in its place, and it was an ally. It was like, the time comes when I may need you, we'll put you on, we'll don the outburst, but for now, go over there, sit in the box, we don't need you. And due to several different stressors, for some who've listened, like I really talk about it all the time on here, but I have a son, now. That was recent development in January. Never had a kid, and to be frank, didn't plan on having the kid. So it wasn't a pre-planned pregnancy, but went through with it. Obviously, he's here, and that took a lot of adjusting. Takes a lot of adjusting, and this was going on concurrently with other things in my life. Me working on native assets and that kind of, not really going the way I foresaw necessarily, and also Haley dealing with a lot. And me obviously dealing with a lot, going through all of this. So my temper had come back, and so I've been seeing a therapist, and he told me that he feels that I have an explosive disorder. I don't know what the technical name is. Might be the technical name is explosive disorder. They give names for all the shit these days, but I probably wouldn't disagree with that. And so that's where my mom's joke came in of, oh, I saw my tribe, because obviously the idea being, if the stimulus or the impetus for one's outburst is disproportionate, so if a fly lands on me or somebody steps on my shoe and I'm ready to pull a pistol out on them, not that that's ever happened, but let's say that's the situation, the stressor, the scuffed shoe, does not, warrant pistol being pulled. So kind of that idea. So let's look at Will's situation. Joke being made by a comedian at an event where everybody's going to get got at some point, particularly if you're in the front row. Somebody cracking a joke on your wife, you're going up and open hand slapping them on television when they're not really in a situation to do anything, when you probably have 80 to 100 pounds on this man. It's just in other aspects of just bullying and other things, just shit's just not cool. That initial, outburst, I have had outbursts. They've never been violent to inflict on anybody else, but adding it to, okay, now Will is expressing how he feels. He's not, tempering this. It'd be way different if it was in the street, and it was somebody who could defend themselves, and you kind of let it be known, so it could escalate in different ways. You don't just go up and slap a dude, because you don't like what he said. So it was kind of just, I think, partially the hype of just being like, whoa, Will Smith just slapped that nigga. Like, that's crazy. And then, as I said, after about 30 minutes, and I think I watched it one more time, and I was like, yeah, man, that shit ain't cool, bro. That shit weak. And, as I kind of got out of the hypeness of just, whoa, like it felt like watching World Stars. So I'm like, oh, but yeah, so that was kind of the thought process behind the initial reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can only be human that when we see someone maybe that's not 100% like us in the way that we would react, but has a feeling and acts on a feeling that we may know near. There is many times where I've been like, man, I wish I could just punch that mother in the face. I wish I could just close fisted, knock that little ass out. Many people that I've come across, I've thought that about, but I think that it's interesting. I think that it's also, I don't know if frightening is the right word. I think that it's uncalled for. I think that you are at the Oscars. You are one of the biggest names in the room. Everyone knows who you are. You just released your book. You are on the path to talk about your whole life, the same way McConaughey just did with Green Lights, right? You are coming off of a massive role playing the father of a very pivotal person in Black sports history, right? You're coming right off the end of that. I think it's interesting, and I think it's also uncalled for. I think that if you, as a man, can't handle your words and play nice with others, or find a means to go through with them in a non-violent way, and maybe in a violent way in a controlled environment, maybe go do jujitsu or get your face kicked in by other men that are capable, but slapping Chris Rock 80 pounds less than you in front of everyone when he can't do anything, who doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to jeopardize his spot, and also you're not going to catch charges. You know that nothing's going to come of this. You are protected. I think it's a low blow. It's kind of like cheap shotting someone over the back of their head.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really great analogy.
It's like you walking up, you seeing someone at a bar drinking a beer, and as they sip the beer, you hit them in the chin. That's some weak ass energy, right? If you didn't at least turn them around, what are you doing? And I'm not saying I'm not a proponent of you just going up and hitting somebody. I think that's a very poor way to handle anything. However, fair is fair. If you're looking somebody in the face, it's a whole lot different than on a stage like that. I don't believe let's say it wasn't staged. I don't believe that Chris Rock thought that he was about to get slapped.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Especially with them having a halfway close relationship since the 90s.
Mm.
Pictures
Yeah.
surfacing of the three of them together.
Mm. And that was actually part of what I think some of the idea being. It's like the justification is not there any way you spin it. I get why some people want to try to put a justification. And one of the ones I heard was, oh, well, you know, it was a medical thing that she was dealing with. So for him to make a joke about her medical condition was off limits. And so that's Will. So that was part of what was going through my head is, all right, well, if he feels the need to defend his woman XYZ, but like I said, there's really no justification for slapping him. And I didn't know that was about to happen. I just saw the Kanye situation. So I thought maybe he was going to take the mic, you know, do something like that.
The
So
Kanye Taylor Swift. Is that what you're talking about? Or
exactly,
just like yanked it and start talking?
Yeah, just like crack some crazy joke. But as I said, that's when it really, after I sat with it for a few minutes, started processing more of, all right, Will, based on just some of the stuff he talked about on the show, he kind of got this initial persona of being the funny dude as a means to try to protect his mom from getting physically abused by his dad. So we also must keep this in mind. He literally grew up in a household seeing his dad put his hands on a woman. Mm-hmm. So in his mind, it may not be too big of a deal to go put your hands on a dude, right? But coming from that kind of environment, that's a different type of trauma that you've experienced. Who knows what else you've seen and experienced throughout your life as you've gotten older. And the stress that you might deal with being at that level of notoriety, that level of prominence. And I forget who I was talking to, but he was making the point about how there are few people you can look at that have had his level of success for as long as he's had it, but to have been the butt of so many jokes and so much ridicule at the same time. And also, for an actor, I think this is fair to say, one of the highest achievements you can ever earn is an Oscar. And he's done some phenomenal work. Honestly, I thought the movie was solid. I didn't think it was an Oscar-winning performance. In my opinion, I don't, relative to some of the other roles he's had. But every time the Oscars happens, it's also a match of who else, what other movies were there in the same voting season, this sort of thing. And sometimes, they might just kind of give an award when they're like, all right, well, he probably deserves one at this point. Who knows, right? We're not in the politics. We ain't in the club. But all I'm getting at is the stress that might come from doing all that, and you still have never gotten your flowers, so to say. And his career, in my opinion, kind of been on a downturn for several years. He was one of my favorite actors growing up when I was going to acting classes, and I can't tell, most movies he's dropped in the last 5 years I have not seen because I just have not been interested. And so then, I'm just looking at it from, all right, he looks like a dude who's ready to have a mental breakdown, so factoring in, all right, this may not be Will, with all his marbles together. And almost just the flip of it, having grace for someone who has now made a tremendous mistake, right? And thinking about what he might be dealing with his wife. And, I don't know what it's like to be that high profile. You got a quote unquote open relationship. It's kind of open, kind of whatever. I don't know. I've never watched the Red Talk table, whatever it's called like that. But going back to just what it means to kind of conduct yourself like a man, conduct yourself with masculine energy, with just knowing how to handle disputes in a way that has justice behind it. And there's nothing just, there's nothing composed about going up and slapping a dude in the middle of him doing his job. And he has to go right back to doing his job. And all the things that you said, knowing that you basically can get away with it. And I made the point of, all right, let's just say that Chris Rock didn't have Chris Rock's stature, but he had the stature of The Rock. Would Will go up and open hand slap The Rock?
Highly doubt it.
Probably not. Why? Will knows he gonna get his ass beat. And The Rock is probably going to respond immediately and beat his ass. And it's gonna be what it's gonna be. And so there were just a lot of aspects of it that were just ugly. And I think it's a reminder that no matter what is happening, particularly if we're talking about the realm of words, and I can share an anecdote, of my own situation, because I'm not bothered by sharing it. But basically, when you find yourself in these high tension moments and you want to spaz out, that's where, you know, the quote from Bruce Lee, I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was basically saying that the strength of a man is not measured by how much he can overpower another man, but rather by how much power he has over himself. And so in that sort of situation, whatever it was, like, obviously it was not the day, but Will he was not able to have that power over himself to say, all right, even if at first I was laughing, I look at Jada, she's upset. Oh man, that's my queen, whatever. She wants me to defend her honor. There are lots of ways to solve that problem. And going up, slapping him with an open hand should have been at the bottom of that list. And when you're doing a quick analysis of all the options, you should have been able to rule that one out pretty quickly if you took a moment to stabilize, ground yourself, gather yourself, and just say, you know what? Is it that deep? Did he actually physically hurt her? Is she in physical danger? Am I? Did he really mean, was his intention truly nefarious? Or is he, like you said, if we're friends for over a decade or two, and he feels he can make a quality joke, because also he's trying to do a good job, and maybe feels like we'll be able to take it. There's so many layers to it. Am I a bad friend for not just, you know, letting them kind of take this? It's a pretty easy joke to walk into, you know. And so there's just a lot to really take from this situation as an onlooker, and knowing that there are plenty of people who may find themselves in a situation like I did, literally almost a week to the day, where I was in a situation where it was just hectic, and I lost my temper, and I could have put my hands on an actual person. I put my hands on the door, you know, but I felt like in that moment I lost control of myself, right? And I'm grateful that it didn't come to me actually putting my hands on anybody, but I still don't want to be the dude, you know, 10 years from now, spazzing out, breaking doors because I got upset about something. I got to have a better path, a routine, a better process for knowing when I'm getting to the point where I feel like I'm about to snap or explode, spaz out, whatever it is, and have a way to regulate myself back to a point of balance and poise, and just find a more productive way to handle that emotion and that feeling.
Yeah. I think the point here is less about will and more about what can we take from it and what can we apply to our own life to be better men for those around us. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know your experience in any kind of wrestling or any kind of fighting or anything controlled there. But there's nothing that will humble you more or get you to calm the fuck down when your senses go through the roof than getting your ass beat in the gym. And I don't mean with the barbell. I mean by another human. Sometimes by a human smaller than you. Getting tied up and having your neck taken 14 times in an hour session by someone that weighs 150 pounds when you weigh 210 will really do something to your ego. It will also put you in a position where more oftentimes than not, now this is not an absolute statement by any stretch, but there is a higher probability that when you're in a scenario where words are frustrating, you just don't take it there. You know? Like, I mean, my recommendation is for someone to just strap on that white belt, put on the gi, go into a jiu-jitsu gym, and go get your ass handed to you. If you have a problem with words really, really upsetting you, granted, there's other things that can upset you, and some of those things, jiu-jitsu is not going to help you there. Okay. But there's so many other ways to regulate this. I mean, we've got therapists, we've got psilocybin, we've got pharmaceuticals, which are not my favorite, but they work for some people. We've got all kinds of things. Like, how are we in a place in 2021 with all of these resources? I mean, maybe similar to the way that we have all this knowledge at our fingertips and we're still idiots sometimes. How do we have all these resources yet we're not using them? And also, what's the responsibility of us to hold our fellow brothers accountable here? Like, do we beat our brother's ass if they put a hands on a lady or put a hands on another man that they don't need to be doing? Like, what does that look like? I have no idea. It's kind of the wild, wild west out here sometimes until lawyers get involved and everyone gets sued.
Yeah, lawyers they'll add some structure, some shit real quick. Yeah, I think exactly to your point, you know, there are a lot of tools to deal with this stuff, but one has to acknowledge, like, all right, I need tools to deal with it. And, kind of to your point, I played football for many, many years. It's a very, 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 very violent sport. And every day, I literally play D-line. So I'm going up against dudes who got 100, 150 pounds on me easy every day. And so, yeah, I learned a lot. Like, yo, you're not going to be, there's always somebody bigger than you. There's always somebody, whether they're bigger or not, that can put you on your ass. So sometimes you're going to get put on your ass, and that's okay. But it definitely does kind of orient differently if you've never experienced that. And so I think that people, they just got to have an assessment, do their best to assess where they're at, and have an understanding of what are the things that trigger you. What are the things that kind of push you to those limits, and how badly do you want to work on it, right? Do you want to just kind of excuse it away and just push it on the rug? Oh, that happened this one time, or do you want to be proactive about it and not wait until there's some dire situation to begin to work on it? And I know, and we may have touched on this a bit in the cannabis episode we did. So if y'all haven't heard that, just go check it out. But when I started using cannabis, that really was dramatic in how it helped ease the anger that I had, the frustration, the aggression. And it was kind of just shocking how quickly it did it, because it was a reminder to me of how much of that I had. And there's just so many tools out there. And as far as the accountability component goes, well, in some ways it's like, all right, let's assume that somebody's friends or their confidants, whatever, know about the issue, because if they don't, there's nothing that you can really do.
That's fair.
You're not even aware. But
Yeah.
if you are aware, then I think that it starts with trying to probe, go through the process. All right, well, what happened in this particular situation? Are there parallels between this? Are you in this situation often? How have you been close to the situation before? What specifically about it sent you over the edge? What were you feeling in your body when this happening? What were you thinking? What was the intention, and how, you kind of lashed out or popped off, whatever. And then from that point, I think the role that one can play is to try to brainstorm with that person ways that could work. Now, obviously, nobody can make you do anything, but I think just trying to be there to play a support role of, all right, well, you never been in jujitsu. Is there something you're interested in doing? All right, well, if you do jujitsu, all right, maybe get them in a class of yours, or same thing if you box, if there's some other outlet that works for them. Some people, you don't even have to do something violent or physical to deal with your anger. It's actually the opposite. You do something beautifying, whether it's gardening, something kind of softening, the analogy about the warrior in the garden. So like literally, it's like you done did all this killing, all this warring, and you're like, man, I just want to plant some roses and some daisies and some daffodils, man. And it brings me peace. It calms me down. So I think it's gonna be different for everybody, but there has to be an acknowledgement of the issue, a desire to fix the issue, and then actions taken to move you to pattern interrupt and get you to end something different, so you can kind of work through and build your repertoire of coping tools and techniques to better deal with it the next time, so that you ideally never even get to the state where you need to start coping or breaking out those tools.
Yeah. Feels like we've gotten soft intellectually and physically. Feels like we've gotten soft on ourselves, soft on others, soft in in society. I mean, we take orders from everyone left, right, and sideways. We do what we're told. We don't stand up for the shit that matters, and we let shit pass by that absolutely matters, like pedophilia and other things. And I think it's interesting. I think we need to come up with a handful of a list maybe of actionable items for people to start checking one another on, to potentially look at how iron can sharpen iron here. Because I feel as though, not that I'm saying that anyone that listens to this is hanging out with pedophiles. It's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that there's a lot of things that go unchecked. And I think that it's literally just the byproduct of individuals getting soft, individuals not wanting to step on each other's toes, individuals not wanting to stand up for what is right, because you might have to go against the grain. I mean, how difficult is it now for you to have an opinion that's not the masses? Because if you utter something, you might just get canceled. You might just get soundbited or clipped or something. And next thing you know, your life as you know it is upside down. The ramification of that can be ridiculous. You are literally guilty until proven innocent. And even when you're innocent, you're still guilty. So like, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't think that I surround myself these days with individuals that are unwilling to come to the table and talk solutions, not just problems. I don't think that I spend time necessarily with individuals that they're not willing to push when we need to push. But how do we get more people to do that? Because the group that I'm talking about that we meet with every week, not everyone has that. And I would say more oftentimes than not, when people are like, oh, you have a group that you meet with, I want that. How do we hold people accountable? How do we help them hold others accountable? Obviously, it's all voluntary, right? But I mean, what the hell? I think we've gotten soft. And I think because we've gotten soft intellectually and because we've gotten soft physically, because we're eating so much motherfucking processed food and we're not reading, we'd rather sit and watch Keeping Up with the silly Kardashians rather than read a book on power to understand the dynamics that are at play, whether you want to be a part of them or not. We can't maneuver in shit without throwing our hands up and blowing up. That's all I got.
I think a lot of it is, well, like the poster behind you, a lot of it has to do with comfort, right? It's very comfortable to eat a fattening meal and then kick back up and like, oh, well, let me watch Netflix for 4 hours and, I earned it. And obviously, none of us are saying that you can't enjoy these different niceties of life, right? That is one sign of the development of a society is there is a increased amount of leisure time available for people because you don't have to toil away in the fields, just to make sure there's a harvest for the community every season. I think the other component is, well, finishing that thought, it's about the balance, right? Obviously, it's not to say that people should be uncomfortable all the time, that you should just like pray for discomfort, but it's about exposure to things that make you uncomfortable. And I think that that is what we are by and large missing is stimuli that is abrasive. And a lot of times that comes in the form of conversations, and even the idea of conflict resolution. So many people, they'll have a problem with something. And I've dealt with this at different stages of my life where it's like, you understand that there's a disagreement or you feel differently about something, but you're so worried about hurting the other person's feelings or coming off a certain way that's like, it's like, damn, I was going to say, I'm going to bite my tongue now. I'm biting my tongue. It's just not a good time. It's not a good time. And the skill of being able to sit down and disagree with somebody in a respectful way. Because too often, if somebody has an opinion that differs, they begin to feel attacked. Oh, well, they said this, or they're not making a safe space for me, or they don't want to amplify my voice. And something that's going to sound controversial, maybe. It's like, even, I can't be the only person who sees it. I see it like it's a dominant strategy of a lot of corporations now to put gay couples in their media or to put Black people on their media, like front and center. And obviously I'm Black. I have no issue with Black representation. It's great. There's definitely been systemic oppression. Yes, duh. It's not debatable. But what I read it really as in most situations is well, they did it and they did it and they did it. So if we the only ones that don't have a gay Black couple on the front, we hate niggas. So I guess you got to put a gay Black couple on the front to fit in. And the issue with that is that if we're doing things to fit in, one, we've lost the intention of actually wanting to support or be an ally or whatever you want to call it. And the second thing is, okay, well, today the trend is, all right, let's represent the gay community, the LGBTQ community, the Black community, the BIPOC community. But what if that changes to something else that is harmful, but somehow everybody thinks it's not harmful. And now that's the thing that everybody is. And, maybe that has taken place to some degree. Maybe. I don't know. maybe. Maybe. And so the idea of being able to speak up and just acknowledge that you disagree with some, I think that's actually one of the best ways that we can kind of push that forward, is to be the person who's okay starting the conflict so that you can resolve the conflict. Because it's like, if nobody else wants to play the game, you got to bring them into the game. If you have a conflict, like, hey, this shit over here, I didn't like when you did that, and start the conversation. Now they're a part of it. Now they have to choose either like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, or they have to defend their position. And now we've kind of just like tag you're it, like participate now, like, this is something I want to talk about. So can we talk about it? Don't my feelings matter? Is it just your feelings that matter? But if you don't want to defend it, I want to resolve this. How do we find that common ground? It's an interesting time.
Tag you're it. Start the conversation. Yeah. I mean, what gravity do you feel should be the floor for what to start the conversation on? Like, not, hey, I think your shoes are ugly as fuck. Like, not that, right?
No, not that. I think it works well historically. They talk about like the sandwiches, start with like a compliment.
The compliment sandwich.
Yeah, no, for real though, because the psychology, seriously, you have to disarm the person first. Because if you just come in like, hey, cuz, you left the Frosted Flakes open and now they stale, bruh, then you're just coming in and that person feels attacked. It may not be them who left it open, right? I'm thinking about like a roommate situation. You got multiple roommates, somebody ate your food and you're like, what the fuck? You're trying to do process analysis. So first, and it doesn't have to be a compliment, but I think just disarm, like just prep, like, hey, I wanted to talk about a little something. Kind of like people are, oh no, so just prepare them a little bit. It's kind of like the sucker punch. Just want to come in and like boom, 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 bap. Like, oh man, you didn't give me a chance to like get ready. So prime them in whatever shape you can, but do it in a way that is more gentle than probably the rest of the conversation might be as a general sense. You don't just come in and just like, just dump the issue at their feet, because maybe it's really not a good time to even jump into it. So you do have to be mindful there. But prep them some sort of way. So let's keep with the Frosted Flakes example. Just come in, hey man, you got a second? You got a quick second? It's not a big deal or anything, but I just like, I don't want to intrude if you're doing something, but I just had like a thought. I just want to run by you real quick. Oh yeah, no, I'm chilling, man. Okay, bet. All right, cool. So now you've let them know that you want to bring something up. You've asked their permission. I'm not intruding, right? Like, is this okay if I go in this direction? I just want to bring something up. It's not a big deal. So you're also acknowledging everything that comes after what I say. It's not a big deal, right? So you're setting the expectation. So now you get into it. And when you get into it, get to the point. All right, cool. So I noticed these Frosted Flakes. The box was left open, and maybe you did it, maybe you didn't. So I thought that maybe you did. So then you can just acknowledge, okay, did they do it? So you get a confirmation, yes or no. Other ways you can go about it, but I think my point is kind of being made here. So you do that, handle your conflict, and do that in a way where, I think this is key, try to take your emotion out of it. So maybe it pissed you off when it first happened, but if you're no longer pissed about it, don't get pissed again just because you're talking about it, because they will likely be the emotional one, because now they're attacked and they've been found out that they're a box cereal stale lever opener. And so they're feeling the kind of way. And if both the people are emotional, it's unlikely to have a rational conclusion. So you anchor it with the non-emotion, let them be emotional if they're going to be emotional, and then keep anchoring it to like remove the emotion from the conversation when it gets back to your end. And handle your talk about what the fuck you need to talk about. Obviously, it can be things that are way more serious than fucking Frosted Flakes. And then at the end, try to propose a solution from your end, or what you would like to see happen, and see if they can participate in that solution. Same thing there, lead it to try to be amicable afterwards. Let them know that like, hey, if granted, obviously, like I said, the gravity of things can change. Doesn't mean that you got to be friends at the end of it, but try to make it where you ideally close the loop of this problem by the time you leave the conversation or present the next steps. So that was like off the cuff, conflict management framework. So if you're in conflict management, hit us up. Let us know if that's a good framework, because I just came off the top of the fucking dome with that shit with Frosted Flakes. So anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think the justification looks like to slap another man open-handed?
Um, you put hands on some of my kin, or somebody that I care about. You put hands on me. You made threats to do such. Uh, you outed some information that could have a substantial impact on safety, on privacy, on career, on something to that extent. Basically, it has to be something that can actually induce harm. And it doesn't have to be physical harm necessarily, but reputational harm. If it's just outright untrue, particularly.
Defamatory.
Now, yeah, defamatory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can say this. I can say this though confidently. I have never started an altercation physically with somebody in my life.
Good for you.
Oh shit!
That's
actually,
a great thing.
I take that back. There was one time I was playing like wiffle ball or whatever. Like you play like kind of baseball when you're like 4 or 5. Yeah, I did pop it off on a chick, but she was bad mouthing my mother, so I went in. But I was like 4 or 5. It's not justified, but so
I
technically,
can't say that everything that I've done is justified either, but yeah, I can't say that it's a goose egg. I tell you that. It's definitely not a goose egg. I've had my fair share of karma on that one though. Worry not. And
What do
cheap
you
shot
think?
on the chin.
What do you
I
think is
mean, I think
justified?
that it's weak to be reactionary and violence. I think if you're going to be violent, you should be first and you should be aggressive, and they shouldn't be able to be violent back. That's what I think. Like if you're truly going to incite violence, first you must have the actual capability, right? And I think also the gravity of what you're talking about has to be to a place where you're willing to give up freedom for it. Because nowadays you can't punch someone in the face, you can't open hand slap, you can't push them down the stairs, you can't do anything, even if it's retribution for something that's going on, or even if it's retaliatory for anything that went on. Like the law doesn't look at it that way, and there's tons of attorneys that want your money, so like you will have ramifications. So rule of thumb here, and not saying that this is legal advice or anyone should follow this, but if you're not willing to give up your freedom for it, I would be careful about you playing in it unless you know for certain with zero uncertainty that nothing's going to come from it legally or litigiously. But I mean, you just never know. You can hit someone going 5 miles an hour on accident in the car, on their car, and they could sue you 50 grand. So who knows? There's a few situations, and they're not threats, they're just promises, in the event that someone comes at me in those situations. And yeah, I'm absolutely going to throw all caution to the wind for sure. But there's many times where your words are not going to, outside of you brandishing a firearm and telling that you're going to do something. That's about that line for me. You can talk all day and I will happily walk someone behind me looking you dead in the eyes and back up the whole time. We don't need to go to hands because I've gotten out without brain damage before. Sometimes you're not so lucky.
No, that's real. I like that framework a lot better, particularly the advice on, is it worth losing your life or your freedom for? And in most situations, it's not. That's just the reality. I haven't been in many fist fights. Yeah, and a lot of times it was for that reason, because at the moment, when I did feel the anger, I knew the anger was so extreme. If I were to begin fighting, I would try to kill the person. And, and I also recognize that you can kill a person by accident quite easily.
Untrained, and you can hit them the wrong way. They bounce off
exactly.
a corner of a table,
and that's
and boom,
a lot
it's
of
over.
times what it is.
It's over.
It's the environment can be quite. The environment's not built for us to just fall on it at the wrong angle. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of times that's when just crazy things happen. Is people got their hands, whatever, and then freak accident, and now manslaughter.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, I'd like to amend my answer on that question. No, for real though. Yeah, long story short, there is, in most situations, violence really is not the solution unless you are going to take it to a controlled environment where the stakes are not death. Or
Well,
Jared.
and I mean, I really think that there's instances where I think, you know, any meek, not weak, but meek man. I mean, there's a line in the sand where you will take when violence is the answer, and violence is not the answer in the majority of every scenario. But I think there's a few things that when, if and when they come to pass, well, James might not be out here walking as a free man. You know, I hope to whatever powers that be that they do not come to pass, because I do not want to lose freedoms. I do not want to go and become a monster. But if you don't have the propensity to be one, you're not courageous. You're just weak. If you have no propensity for violence, you can't even protect anyone anyways. So my recommendation there would be to sharpen the sword, but keep it sheathed.
Anything else you got?
No, quick and dirty. Here we go. First episode back. We are wrapping up, and we thank you for being out here. We've got full length in video format, both on Spotify, and it's going to be up because we put it on video on Anchor. It's going to be in Spotify on video. It's going to be in YouTube on video, and everywhere else it should be audio unless they allow it to push through as video. Most places don't, but those two for sure. New episode every Monday morning, 0900 hours. I hope to see Sae'Von back for more of these in the coming weeks, but regardless, we will take him and celebrate anytime we get with him, regardless there. So look out for some new episodes, some new people being introduced. And yeah, we thank y'all for coming out. Thank you so much. It's been a ride. See y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.